So now that our physics engine is working, I'm finally getting back to working on the art. I'm starting right at the beginning again, and I'm working on the main menu page. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing shape filling with all of the fruits. And with that, I'm going to generate like a sort of background of the fruits and use that for the title. And might use that for the button background and other parts of the UI as well. So I just have it randomly placing fruits until I get a good distribution that I think looks good and doesn't have them intersecting too much in a way that looks off. Alright, so here is the filled fruits. And then I went and I used that as the background for this. So you can see here, I have a, that's the old one. So I basically just textured some text using this image. Doesn't look incredible right now. I might shift it around and resize it a bit, but I think it actually looks all right in the game. I don't know if I like the deep mango there, like it may be too much contrast, but anyways, I think it looks better than before. Next thing I'm going to work on though is these buttons. I'm going to change this background color and text color to like match this. I'll probably use a gradient, we'll see. Alright, I'm straight into making the game. I've redone the UI here. You can see I have a nice gradient for the background and the buttons redone. Go into the game here. The game is pretty much set. We can drop fruit. I mean, I haven't done the actual logic yet. The fruit can't combine, and there's no score or losing game. I do have the score element set up in the bottom. You can see here we can place fruit. I have a pause menu set up. I basically have done most of the UI styling and set up like the main layout of the game's menus, and it's now just on to like doing the actual game mechanics and polishing, which is gonna set to be the main focus. I'm also thinking about playing audio effects now that I'm doing the game mechanics. I'm gonna be responding to physics collision events, and that's also made me think about playing some audio when the fruit hit each other and hit the ground. So I'm probably going to do some audio effects next, and I'm going to do a little background song in LMMS here. So yeah, it's going pretty well so far, I think. It actually turned out to be more stable than I thought. This is running at 50 tick rate. I may, like, there's still some physics stuff like that, like tick rate, that I might adjust as we make the game and polish the mechanics. Like, having that jittering at the bottom is not nice, but that's something that kind of always happens with this sort of physics engine when you have lots of pressure from lots of objects pushing down. Alright, before we get into audio, I just want to show off the UI a bit, show how I've done it. This is all just written in plain HTML and CSS. We can see I have the loading panel here, main menu, game panel, and here we have the pause panel that's currently open. So you can see the SFX and music sliders are just input ranges, and these are organized in a table. Then I've done custom styling for the sliders here in CSS. We have the styling for our button. The background is just a linear gradient that I made to match the background of the game. The outline on the text here is a hack using text shadow to put like a bunch of shadows all around each corner of the text to make a black outline. It's not the most efficient, but it works. And yeah, that's our UI. And then we just respond to any events here in JavaScript. Nice and easy. So I tried messing around with doing a sort of like procedural, I have these drum beats, and I decided to randomly sequence them together in JavaScript, sort of do like a procedural audio sequence, but here it is. So the issue is that on phones, I tested it on an Android, and it has some choppiness because the seeking of audio on phones is not nearly as accurate on computers, I guess because it's slower, however it works. So I kind of had an idea that this wasn't going to work, so I didn't put too much effort into it, but since it doesn't, I'm just going to go ahead and put these into a usual song, and we'll just have a regular MP3 that'll just play and loop in the background. But I was thinking, since you want something that is going to play for like a long time, having it randomly sequenced using like a Markov chain so that the song changes, I think that would be better so that you don't keep hearing the same looping. But alright, let's just make a normal song. So the song is complete here, and I've got the sound effects. So I recorded my own sound effects of fruit falling onto my hand. So these are just going to be the dropping sounds that play when the fruit falls. And then I've got like a crushing noise, like a squeezing noise. I just squeezed a clementine, recorded that, and so that's going to be the sound that plays when the fruits are combined. So here we have the sound effects. I've combined them all in one file just so that it loads more efficiently. And I've just recorded these starting times. So to play the sound effects, it's just going to seek to this part of the audio file and play it. And it shouldn't have any issue seeking because it's such a small audio file. And I'm going to use WAV format on systems that support it. I just realized, why is this music.wav here? This is just going to be an MP3. So then here's the music. I made the music in LMMS. It's mostly using just some plain drum samples, and then I have this DVS saxophone synth. So here's a quick preview of the song. It's just supposed to be like simple background music. It's not really complicated or even good, just something to play in the background. As you can see, all of these here, most of this is just drum beats. It's just going through the drum beats and gets more complicated here. And then it starts playing the saxophone with it. You can kind of see what it's doing. The LMMS project will be available with the source code, so if anyone's interested in this, that'll be available. So there we go. There's main audio done. Now we're going to implement it in the actual game. So here we have it. The audio is implemented. Plays the sound effects whenever you drop the fruit. You can't really hear it because it's behind the music. I'm gonna have to lower the music, and you can see we have combining fruits. It gives you 5 points every time you combine a fruit. So the main gameplay is implemented now. I have a whole bunch of polishing to do. It's not balanced at all, but like the main thing is here. That's great. So yeah, here let's look at it. So I have the audio. I said I was going to do all the sound effects in one file. So this is all the timestamps of the audio in the file. I load the sound effect. We check for WAV support. If it is supported, we use that because that's better for seeking quickly. MP3, because of the compression, it can't seek as well, and it is slower for decompressing. But we do use MP3 for the music because there's no issue there. That just loops. So we just play the music and it just loops. We have to run a little code every frame for the sound effects though, and check if the current time is finished playing the current sound effect so that it doesn't go through the file and start playing the rest of the sound effects in the file. So when you click play, it starts playing the music. You can see here when we click pause, it stops the music and it stops any sound effects. We gotta take that into account now, because we have audio. So here to merge the fruits in the physics engine, we check here if the fruits are the same. When the fruits touch each other during the velocity response here in the physics, we check if the fruits are the same ID, and we check if they haven't merged this tick with any other fruits, and we set the merge with to each other, and then we add to this merge fruits array. So this way each tick we know whatever fruits we're touching with each other and which ones we should merge. And then I also have some code that finds the maximum negative y velocity and force, and if it's past a certain amount, it plays the sound effect of a dropping fruit. So that's where the sound effects will come from. Whenever the fruit hit each other or the ground with a decent force. So then each tick after doing the physics, we loop through this merge fruits array and process the fruits. We set them to null, reset the merge with to null. We destroy the one hit fruit and we set the other fruit to the next fruit. So +1 mod 10. So if it's pineapple, it loops back to blueberry. And then we add some score and we play a sound effect, the crunching sound for them combining. And there we go. So that's the main game logic. So spawning, this spawning code here is the main balancing that I'm going to be changing. So it drops the fruit ID, whichever fruit it drops, based off the drop count. So if this didn't have any randomization, you would just be able to chain the exact same fruits together perfectly every time. Like you would get a blueberry. Like you would get one of every fruit to match each other. So you would basically be able to go on for a very long time without losing. Changing this function and changing it to be more random will be how you make the game more difficult, because it increases the probability that you won't get the same fruit in a cycle, and you'll have the same fruit building up without being able to combine it and eventually reduce it. So this will be one of the main values to tweak and balance. But now I think I'm just going to polish up before I get focusing on the main gameplay. I'm just going to finally polish up this menu stuff, get these sliders working, make sure the audio is all working properly. Alright, these sliders are set up and working now, and it saves the values to IndexedDB. So now you can hear the audio effects because it's not playing the music over it. So I've set up the whole save and loading system while I did this too, so I'll be able to use this to save high scores. Just go and put the high score values in this JSON here, and then when we load it, load in the high scores. And with this I also set the default music to be 0.5 instead of 1, so the music is quieter and you can still hear the sound effects over it. And so playing this is already pretty fun. So I'm going to go straight into focusing on the gameplay and balancing and working on the gameplay. One of the first things I noticed is that light fruits, so the way my physics engine works is it repels all the fruits and shapes equally, and I realize now that it should probably repel lighter objects more than heavier objects. So right now, like these light blueberries will push off each other equally to the banana, but they should actually push off way less, or the banana should push off way less and the blueberry should be pushed more from the banana, as it would be a lighter object. And I think with that, the heavier objects would sink to the bottom. So I'm going to make that change to the physics engine, and I'm going to see about doing that, because I don't think it's good right now that these sink to the bottom. Like you can see the lighter fruits just like sink to the bottom, but then they still, because they're lighter, they get all this velocity put into them because they're easily pushed due to being light, and they jitter around like this. So I have a feeling just putting the heavier objects in the bottom, from changing around how this repulsion works, it'll make the physics more stable. So let's do that. Well, I accidentally turned the pineapple into something like a black hole that just sucks everything in. Alright, so scaling the repulsions based off the mass is definitely more realistic, and I think it resulted in a way better simulation. You can see everything is way more tightly packed, and it resulted in the light shapes like the raspberries and stuff easily falling off the fruit. But the issue you can see is if you get a light fruit like the lime pressed between two heavy fruits, then it doesn't have enough repulsion to push them back. It's getting pressed. So it, like, technically what would happen is you should propagate, like realistically you should propagate the force of the banana or the pineapple through the lime so that it pushes back on the banana and it pushes back on the pineapple. But I'm not, like, the only way that sort of force is propagated is with the velocity response, and that isn't enough to push back. So I'm almost thinking now, is there a better way to do this collision repulsion where you like propagate the repulsion forces through the fruits? I don't know. Like, on the other hand, like, technically increasing the collision solver iterations does cause that propagation that I talked about, where they respond, the forces will respond to each other and push back. But it's still not to the same degree that I'm thinking of, where like you completely pass the force. If this banana's pushing this way and the pineapple's pushing the other way, could you somehow transfer that force through the lime so you know to the banana that it does need to push back? It's like, it's an interesting thing. Like, do you almost have some like vector value for objects saying like, is this object under pressure? It's definitely fun to just watch the shapes combine and the physics just sort of play out. Oh man, I'm really on the edge about this changing this repulsion, because like on one hand it does result in a way better result, like the objects are way tighter packed, but you get stuff like objects getting stuck in each other way more. So I'm thinking like, is there a way to get both of these effects where we can stop objects from pushing into each other and getting stuck in each other while still having the lighter objects push off less? Well, I managed to find what I think is a best of both worlds. So I decided to try literally a mix of both of the methods. So when the objects get close to each other within the minimum bounding radius of the other, so like if it's a bounding radius of 1 and it's 1 distance inside the other, then it will completely revert back to the equal repulsion of 0.5 repulsion for each object. And then if it's 0 distance, which it'll never really be, then it'll be 100% of the mass-based repulsion scale, which might be like 10-to-1 scale, for example, like 0.9 for one and 0.1 for the other. So this is like dynamically changing the repulsion scale based off the pressure of the objects, of how far they're pushed into each other. And with this, it's literally a best of both worlds. Even though the objects get pushed into each other, they don't completely like disappear within another because they start applying the full force again. And it did result in, overall, I think, a more stable simulation. You can see here there is a lime disappearing a bit. The limes are still tricky actually because their bounding radius is so big. it's like a lot of this shape pushing in the line isn't like, if you imagine it, isn't filling up the bounding radius, which is the full circle. So it's like, unless the objects are hitting the edge of the line, it's not completely reverting to that 0.5 repulsion. So basically circular objects are still repelled the absolute best. It's of course not perfect, but I'm very happy with it, and I think this is good. It's fairly stable. I am still trying to find a way to, like, I don't think I'm going to get rid of the jittering. That's just the physics system sorting out the high velocities. I am looking at putting limits on the velocity and maybe damping the velocity, which will help, but the jittering will happen either way when objects are pressed against each other and it goes through the repulsion. So I'm thinking of finding a way to average out more frames, maybe, to make it smoother and reduce the jittering. Basically just find a way to cosmetically reduce the jittering, even if it's still going to actually be there behind the scenes in the physics engine. Okay, so I did some more polishing. I completely removed that mass-based repulsion from the physics. I just found it way too unstable. I went back to the old system. Don't have to worry about any of that instability. I'm working back on the gameplay again, so I've added the game over detection when objects hit the height. You can see here, and I also added an animation, so that actually just triggered the game over. So I'm doing the animation in the shader, in the background shader. I already had a empty W component of the parameters here, so I just pass in this height limit line amount, and if this is above 0, then I render that sort of dotted blocky line across the top with so it's just like a gradient repeating line. So then, now that I'm doing the game over, I wanted to do an animation when it triggers this game over. So it's going to play an animation as if it's like blending together all of the fruits. So that's what I'm going to work on now. I'm rendering all of this to I'm going to render all this to a frame buffer and then run a shader over it for a few seconds to make it look like it blends up the fruit. And then it'll fade in game over. And so to detect this, to detect that the fruits are at the line and it's game over, I just put it straight in the physics collision code. When the fruit is colliding with the boundary walls, I check if it's colliding with the roof by checking if the normal is -1 or nearly -1. And then I also make sure that the fruit isn't the last dropped fruit, because sometimes when you drop the fruit, it hits off the ceiling immediately. So this is so it doesn't immediately trigger that hit fruit detection. So then once it hits that, I start a timer, and if the timer stays active for 1.5 seconds, then it's game over. I might increase or decrease this value. We'll see how hard it is with 1.5, but I feel like basically I don't want to have false detections where a fruit flies up and hits the ceiling once and it triggers it, but at the same time I don't want stuff to sit on the ceiling for a while and not trigger the game over. Okay, I definitely feel like I'm in the polishing stage now, which definitely feels good. See, I've added some stuff to the UI here. I'm going to add in a credits page and a guide. The credits is going to be where you can download the source code. I'll probably also put some info about like how I use paint.net and LMMS to make it, like what tools I use to make the game. So I did a little game over animation. I said I was going to do like a cool blending feedback loop in the frame buffer, and I was just like, that's complete overkill. I decided to reuse the limit line that I had and make it go down the screen. So if you watch, when it goes game over, it sends those down the screen to make striped bars. I'm not sure about having them go all the way. I looked at having them cut off halfway, but that also kind of looks wrong. So Yeah, I'm just having them go down halfway right now, and instead I might make them thinner so that there's more like gradient. I don't know. At the end of the day, I think it looks fine right now. I'm pretty happy with it. So I have a proper game over screen now, and that game over title was just done in paint.net, just like the other title. These all these project files will be here in the source code in the dev folder if anyone wants to use them. So now I think I'm going to work on that credits and guide page, just get that sort of visual, cosmetic, and user interface polishing done, focus on the game. So here is the guide page. I've also changed around the organization of the menu here so that it fits on mobile. So here in the guide page, it's basically just a big paragraph that explains how you play the game, has the series of fruit, and the order they go. So blueberry, raspberry, strawberry, lime, kiwi, apple, banana, mango, watermelon, pineapple. And they loop back around to blueberry. And the credit page is empty. Haven't done that yet. So I've made a few polishing changes. I added a starting Y velocity, so the objects are sort of thrown down straight away and they get to the bottom quicker. This way I could keep the gravity the same and it keeps the physics just as stable, but the objects reach the bottom quicker so you can play the game quicker. It's better, I think. Makes it feel a lot more fluid, and I really like it. I changed how the text shadowing is done for the score text here. It does it based off the axes instead of the diagonals now, and it looks better for bigger text, I think. Just some small changes to make it more fluid. I added the proper high score system, so let me trigger losing here. So if we lose here, we've got new number 1 high score. We go back to the main menu. Here's our score right here. If we play again, it'll give us a number 2 score. And we got the number 2 score, and all this is saved to IndexedDB in our save state, so it all stays when you reload it. So now I just got to do the credits page. I'm looking. One of the things I really want to do, I'm definitely going to do, is I'm going to do an effect for when you combine the fruits. It kind of looks weird to just have the fruits disappear and have another fruit appear. I'm going to do I still don't know yet. I'm going to do some sort of effect for when the two fruits combine. Some sort of particle or I'm not sure. Something that maybe looks like the two fruits morphing together or crushing. Either way, I think I need some animation. It especially looks weird when you have the big fruits like the pineapple there just disappear. Have some animation where it sort of fades away would be way better. But yeah, it's looking way more polished now, and it's 100% a game now. Oh yeah, and the most important thing, balancing wise, I found a spawning function, a way to spawn them that has a very good difficulty. It's not too easy and it's not too hard. So this spawns a random of 3 fruit based off the last fruit that was spawned, and it spawns them. Basically, if you look at the series of fruit, this spawns fruit that are farthest away from the last fruit in the series. So it makes sure that you aren't going to get immediately the same fruit one after another, but you might get the same one after, you drop a blueberry, you might drop something else and then get another blueberry. But it gives you objects that are far apart in the series, so you may end up building up a bunch of shapes and a bunch of fruits that you can't combine. So I think it's a good difficulty. The most hardest difficulty that I actually found is just this, where you just spawn them one after the other, like you spawn a blueberry, a raspberry, a strawberry, and this means that you won't get another blueberry until you go all the way through pineapple back to blueberry. And this is actually pretty difficult because it means that you have to build up all of the fruits
on the ground before you start combining any, and they just start building up and building up. I didn't really like that because that means it plays the same every single time. I wanted a bit of randomness, so you can get unlucky here, and you can get a bunch of fruits that are far apart from each other in the series, don't combine, and you end up building up a bunch of uncombined fruits. Or you can get lucky and you can end up getting a bunch of back-to-back fruits that combine each other. So I'm looking for more of like that randomized balancing where there's a degree of gambling to playing. But we'll see. This is one of the hardest parts. This is what I talked about when I said spending a lot of time balancing the gameplay. It's really important how the gameplay feels, and you can really only balance this, I believe, by playing it over and over and over again. And I've just been pulling this up on my phone and just testing it out, and this current spawning algorithm feels way better than the previous ones. Oh yeah, and I've talked about IndexedDB. I have this index storage. I should have talked about this earlier when I first implemented save states. So this is a wrapper for IndexedDB that wraps it in a bunch of easy to use functions, and then it falls back to local storage if IndexedDB isn't available. So this way we have our whole saving and loading system using IndexedDB that doesn't have as big storage limits. But then at the same time, if we're on an old browser that doesn't have IndexedDB, we can still save in local storage. And I've used this file as like basically the same file that's in GLSL Canvas and a bunch of the other web apps that I've previously made, so it's not new. All right, though, we're in the home stretch. Well, this is it. I think the game is done. So now if I put two fruits together there, you'll see we've got a combine animation. There, you really see it when you combine two pineapples. So I made this combine animation it's designed mostly to show you, give you an idea what's happening by seeing which, you can sort of see it makes two spiral circles and one of them is sucked into the other. So you can see what color is being sucked in as what fruits combined. And the one that stays still is the new fruit. So you can see two strawberries combined there, and it created a lime, and the circle in the middle was the lime. So you can see from the animation, like, it gives you information about what shapes are combining, and like if a whole bunch of combinations happen all at once, you can kind of look at the animation and see, like, get an idea of which ones are combining. Gives you more information. I think it's pretty good. In a way, I wanted to do more with the animation, but I still think it's just best to do something simple like that. Provides information for the game, and I think it looks kind of good having this, like when you combine the fruits, it feels good seeing that sort of flash pop up. And I've been testing out the difficulty more and more, and I'm really happy with the difficulty. So with that, it seems like everything's good. I haven't encountered any more bugs. I added a slider here to turn the combine effect off if I feel like some people, like, the combine effect could potentially, it's a custom shader. So I did the combine effect by writing a shader here. And so it renders like a quad across a bunch of the screen and then calculates the effect in the shader. And that's how it does the sort of spiral effect of sucking one to the other. You can see here I draw the two colors. It's sort of hard to understand because all the shader variables are packed into this params. But we have the two colors of the two fruits here, and you can see it multiplies by these masks, the A distance and B distance. And these are the two spiral effects. So this cosine is creating the spiral. You can see the spiral is made by feeding in the length and the angle. And then we also feed in the time and the seed. So it spins and it changes each time based off the seed. And then right here, we have the B position. And you can see we add the A direction divided by the A length. So this is like simulating gravity of having it sucked one into the other. So this is what creates the effect of B being sucked into A. So that's our animation. Like it's not really complicated, but if a whole bunch of these happened at once, I'm sure it could create lag on some devices like mobile. So, and some people might just not want the flashing, you know, so why not add this option? Turn it on and off. But with that, seems like this is the game. I'm very happy with it. I've been playing it a bunch, and it's actually very fun. Oh, I thought I was gonna lose there, but there we go. I think that completes it. I'm just like, it's so difficult with polishing, right? Because you're like, what else do I need to do? What else can I do? But really, this is just a small game, and I can always add some little updates later. So with that, I think I'm going to release version 0 now. Okay, I have most of the game ready to post on my website and itch.io here. You can see the itch.io page. We've got our game just loading straight in. Nice thing about doing this all in JavaScript is the game just loads basically instantly, loads super quickly. And it's all very lightweight. So now what I want to do is I have screenshots, but I want to do a little trailer to post on YouTube to link to the game as well. And so one of the things that I wanted to experiment with, I haven't done this before, I want to try to do the trailer all in a single cut in a video. So basically just record myself playing the game, and then I'm going to add a little script here that after a minute, 60 seconds, it'll display this overlay with the title and saying play free in browser. So it'll basically do the trailer for me. Make it really easy to do the trailer. I haven't done this before, but I think it'll work pretty well. So yeah, let's try it. And here we go. It is published. So I've got the trailer up now. It's up here on my homepage as well, Zalos.com. So you can get it on both itch.io and Zalos. And here's the trailer. Oh man, it's funny. So it feels like now everything's up. This is version 0, but you know, game dev is never done. For all I know, a bug could pop up and I'll be programming version 1 anytime soon. Anyways, this has been the development of that fruit game. It's been a really great process, honestly. Making a physics engine is really difficult, but it's something that, like, I mean, so many games involve making a physics engine. This isn't the first one I've tried to make, but I'm very happy with this one. I was able to implement pretty much all the features I wanted, and I feel it fits this game very nicely. I hope people can learn from these development vlogs, and I hope everyone is doing well. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.